Yes, please. You can just put it on the bed, actually. Yeah. Set it right there.
Welcome to the City Council meeting on July 14th, 2026. This is the Clinton City Council, and we're grateful to have you with us tonight. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation by Councilmember Chris Danson. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our gracious Father in heaven, we're so very grateful that we're able to gather together as the city leaders and residents and be able to celebrate these wonderful achievements that others have made. And we're so grateful to be able to recognize them and be able to do these pinning ceremonies as well. And we ask the Father to please let us have thy spirit, that we may be led and guided as to the best path forward for the city, as well as being able to bless those who are putting their lives on the line every single day to protect the residents. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you so much. Well, welcome. I'm Mayor Marie Doherty, and we'll start with a roll call of the City Council. Jennifer Christensen.
Spencer Harvey. Chris Danson.
And we should have Adam Larson online. Adam, can you hear us?
Jesus Christ.
Yes, I'm here.
Mayor Marie Doherty.
Councilmember Larson.
Roll call of the City Council. Just wanted to check our own voices for a minute. Perfect. Okay, I heard you, Adam, so thank you very much. All right, well, on our agenda tonight is a really exciting lineup of ceremonial recognitions. We're so grateful for all the hard work that you've put into serving our community, and we're grateful to be able to honor you tonight. We have a fire badge pinning ceremony first, and we'll call Chief Polson up to do that.
I'm also gonna call Deputy Chief Jarvis up. He's gonna pin the badge, and I'll have Ty Andrews come up. I've got this nice badge for Ty. So Mayor and Council, you remember Ty been hired on a little over a year. He's been in weed and abatement and code enforcement, and also part of his duties are in the fire marshal side. So we were able to join both to kind of make one person have a dual role. So he's had to navigate two bosses. And has that been easy?
Oh, yeah.
And so he's done really good with our code enforcement, and he's also done really good with our on the fire side. So we just got word today that he successfully passed his fire inspector. That's one of the hardest fire certs to get, and to not be fire service related and oriented and all that experience, which was his first time, and he passed his first time. So Ty's a very smart, talented employee, and we're lucky to have him. But I think Ty should introduce family. Ty, do you want to introduce your family?
Sure.
Okay.
So the little one in the stroller is Moses, and my girlfriend Emily, and my oldest Emma, and then my second Kat.
Welcome. Thanks for coming and supporting Ty. So we'll go ahead and pin the badge on Ty. So I'll ask Deputy Chief Jarvis this. He might know, but so might Ty, and the crew that I've got back there will definitely know. How many business inspections will we do in a year?
About 250.
So we do 250 inspections in a year. That's home businesses, That's every business that's commercially inner city that requires a business license every year. We've had the crews doing that. The crews are getting busier and busier with call volume. They ran 13 calls yesterday and they're getting busy. So Ty's gonna help augment some code enforcement with fire inspection. So we're very grateful to utilize him in that role. And that is all.
Thank
I would like to picture with the council.
You don't ask.
We're not that special. But
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Our next ceremonial item is a police officer oath of office, so we'll ask Chief Stoker to come up.
Mayor and council, I'm very happy to introduce Sadie Lashview. She is our newest officer. She is in the police academy right now. She was a sponsored hire for us. We've been very impressed with her, obviously through the recruitment and hiring process, but especially how she's performed in the academy. So far, she comes with an extensive professional history prior to making this decision, including being a veteran in the Air Force. And we're very, very happy to have her. She's, like I said, she's performed exceptionally in the academy to this point. And during the time that she's been with our department, we're very pleased with her being here. We're very grateful she's here and looking forward to her beginning her field training after graduation on the 30th. So without further ado, we will put her under oath, and then we're going to have Sergeant Ronnie Aldridge come and pin her. Raise your right arm. I state your name,
I, Sadie Leish,
having been appointed as a law enforcement officer
having been appointed as a law enforcement officer
with the Clinton City Police Department,
with the Clinton City Police Department,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
of police officer with fidelity.
of police officer with fidelity.
Thank you.
Last, would you like a picture with the city council?
Everyone scoot up. Scoot.
Okay, now. Okay. I think with these last ones, we'll do the handshake route, because they're the certificate ones. Yes.
Madam Mayor, can I just say something very quickly?
Of course.
I went to the fireworks in West Point on the 4th of July, and there was a fight that may or may not have been starting to break out. And I walked over to where the command center was set up, and it was our Davis fire or sheriff's office, our county. And I told the guys that were sitting there, hey, I think there's a fight over there. And before I could even finish the sentence, those guys were up and running. And as I thought about that, it made me really feel proud of law enforcement and of emergency response. And I know that that's exactly what our officers do here. And I just wanted to express my gratitude for everyone in emergency services, because they didn't even hesitate. They ran toward what was dangerous, and I just wanted to express my thanks and tell our new officer that you're coming to a good place, and we have amazing officers here in Clinton.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Christensen. And thank you to all of our first responders who are in this room. We love you all. All right. Next, we have our new CERT member recognition. So we'll have Connie Valentine come on up.
Yeah. I'm Connie Valentine.
Connie, you gotta get into the mic. Yeah.
It makes me. Okay. I'm Connie Valentine. I'm Connie Valentine. I'm coordinator of this Clinton City CERT. I'd like to introduce you to Amelia. And Paris. Involved in there are two newest CERT members. They've studied, taken the CERT 8 weeks course that studies for when we have search and rescue, and learn, we study and learn the skills that's needed to administer help to them. Community CERT stands for Community Emergency Response Team. I'm sorry about the voice. And we live in your neighborhood, and we're there to help with emergency or disaster. We're there to help you with any emergencies or anything around in our neighborhoods. Mayor Doherty, I'd like to introduce you to Camelia and Erin Malone. And we would be really honored if you would minister their award, their certifications for completion.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Erin and Camelia. We're so excited to have you. I've got your certificates here. Why don't we have you come? We'll have everyone give you a round of applause, and we'll have you come do a round of congratulations from the council.
They will be awarded their white, these are our dress hats. Only wearing buttons.
Well, should you
My
have
fellows in their helmet.
Yeah, I think you should put them on, show them off. Gotta see.
We also have a CERT badge for them to wear on their,
That's awesome.
and also a CERT pin. And just hang.
Yeah, so Mayor Council, if I can just maybe have the audience give the CERT one more applause. They helped us with the fireworks boundary line, all of the CERT, driving golf carts up and down, and motorcycles with flashing red lights. And they helped us out a ton. So CERT is an extension to the fire department, and if we can give a round of applause for Connie and her team, that'd be great.
Thank you so much. It's such a well-deserved honor because there are so few people who are willing to do this kind of service anymore. And so it's very impressive that you're going outside of yourself and serving your community that way and doing all the training that's required. I hope that you're learning a lot and feeling the excitement of that. Connie's a great tutor because she has such a passion. So thank you so much. All right, and then we have our employee service awards, and so we will turn the time to Trevor Cahoon, our city manager, to announce those.
Alrighty, so we have several, and it's really fun to be able to recognize these individuals for their year of service. We have Richard Brupp, or Rich as most people call him. And he's been here for 10 years. We're really excited for all the work that he does with us. We have Sergeant Ronnie Allridge, who's been here 10 years. Josh Rodriguez, who's been 5 years. Zach Tucker, who has completed 5 years. We're glad that Zach Tucker came back to receive 5 years for us. He almost left us, but he's gone for a week and decided that he made the wrong choice, so he came back. And then last but not least, our 25 years for Steve Hubbard. He has been a staple of the organization for a very long time. And he's put in a lot of effort and a lot of work. He's been a great friend to me for the last little bit. And I'm really excited for him to reach this milestone. And he has another milestones coming up in September where he gets to go off into the sunset and retire and do all the vacations that he wants. And so I'm just really proud of all of these individuals and getting to know them for the last 2.5 years. They've really helped my job be easier with the work that they do and just more fun because of who they are. So we'll have them come up and recognize them.
Yes, please come up and give the council a handshake. I apologize, I forgot the certificates, even though I just said I had certificates. So we'll get the certificates to you, but you're gonna pretend you got one and you're gonna get an awesome handshake full of love. So come on up, whoever of you are here.
My community service.
All 5 of those individuals are such good people. Love them so much. We are lucky to have them. Thank you for everything you do to serve our community. You work so hard and we really are grateful and you make a difference. You truly do every day. All right, well, this is fantastic. That was quite the ceremonial portion of our city council meeting. It was really exciting and enjoyable. Oh, and so now we have one that's not necessarily a ceremonial thing, but we get to now meet our new parks manager. So we have a new hire at Clinton City and it's Benji, and what's your last name? Benji Fry. Okay. And Brooke's gonna come up and introduce Benji for us. We're excited to have a new face around the premises.
All right, well, I'm super excited because we have a new parks manager. And in the middle of summer, it's been a couple months, right? For me, anyways. Benji comes with a lot of experience. He's been in the parks industry over 20 years. He started as a seasonal and just fell in love with the parks. And he went on and worked as a supervisor in Layton and then was the Parks and Open Space Manager for Clearfield City. Then he decided to go have fun in his home state, right?
Okay.
South Carolina, right? Okay. And then he came back and we were able to hire him. He comes to us with a bachelor's degree from Weaver State, a master's degree from Western Governors, and a ton of experience. He's dealt with budgets 1.5 million. He's dealt with 281 acres of parks and open space and those kind of things over all of his career. And he also has helped maintain parks, trails, urban forestry areas, detention basins, and his favorite, the highway entrances. He loves those things. Especially on Equipville. Yeah, he's managed anywhere from 24 to 38 people at a time. So he's comes very well versed in management and parks. And so we were super excited to bring him on. We have 9 qualified candidates that we interviewed, and I rode around with them all through, well, not all of them, but the majority of them through the parks, and Benji just seemed like he was most qualified to lead our parks division in moving forward with what we're doing. So super excited to have him here. So, yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You come to the mic and just tell us just a little bit, tell us 2 interesting things about yourself, so we can just get to know you a little.
All right, sounds good. From South Carolina, born and raised there, moved here when I was 17 years old. Back in 2005. Like Brooke said, started as a seasonal and then just fell in love with it. Wasn't what I wanted to do. It was just supposed to help get me through school and stuff like that. But then here I am 21 years later. Let's see.
About your family.
Family, I have a wonderful wife, 5 children. My oldest is 14. We just finished up Layton All-Stars baseball. That was a blast. And then my youngest down to 1.5 years. He's a handful. I don't have my tie on. I apologize. I had to hog tie him before I left. He was giving my wife a hard time. But no, it's good. My family's super supportive. They know I love what I do. The best thing I love about this job is all the events that we do. My family love to be involved with it, especially my kids. They think it's awesome that I get to play around in the parks all day and it doesn't get old. So hopefully they stay young long enough to still enjoy that until they realize, maybe it's not so cool. I don't know. But no, I have a really good family, super supportive, and yeah, it's been a good ride. Very thankful to be here. It's good to meet all of you. Everybody's been super welcoming. It's been a good week and a half, so I look forward to working with all of you. So it should be good.
Thank you, Benji. Thanks for accepting this leadership position at Clinton. We're excited to have you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
You too.
Okay, so those of you who have no interest in the remaining portion of our meeting, we will not be offended if you leave. We are also welcome to stay. We are fascinated. All right, the next portion of our agenda is the public input period, where any public member who wishes to address the council may do so. If you have any topic of interest that you'd like to speak to us about, you may come up to the microphone, state your name and city of residence for the record, and we'll allow you up to 3 minutes.
Rich.
Hey, Daniel Martinez, Clinton resident. So I was here the last meeting we had. And everything went pretty well. I felt like it was a good meeting. One thing that didn't sit well with me was the code enforcement that y'all were considering. I'd ask you to reconsider that code enforcement. You went from 10 inches to 6 inches for residents. But there was like a special inclusion or special little carve out for the developers that they could go keep it at 10, bring it down to 6. They don't need to, I mean, like, we're just carving out stuff for people that just is bad policy. That's just bad. Just, they don't, why? I don't think that it's necessary that they need to have the extra 4 inches. And that seems silly. If we're all here, we're all residents, they're here. You mentioned something about an eyesore that maybe it wasn't so much of an eyesore because, well, to me, that's just, you're starting to give some preferential treatment to organizations that are not residents really. And it just kind of set wrong with me. So I just thought I'd let you all know, reconsider. I know that doesn't mean that you'll go back on it, but just something to think about. Thank you.
Since it doesn't look like we have another comment, I can actually just address your concern since you took the time to come. You're our only commenter tonight. I totally understand where you're coming from, Daniel, because especially if it seems like it's like developer properties, it's like, why are we giving the developers a break? Because can't they just hire someone to come cut that down, make it look nice, right? I totally get that. I think the problem for us is that we do have so many properties that are undeveloped, they're just owned by regular residents here too. And it can become extremely burdensome and expensive for them to have to just keep plowing those, I don't know, if plowing, so mowing, but not with it, but oftentimes they have to have specialized equipment for it too, because of the, it's not just like regular grass that's easy to cut with cheaper machinery. And so just the burden for some of those people to have to just stay on top of that at every second because it grows so fast. That's what we had in mind, is we were trying to be respectful of those longtime residents who have that undeveloped land that they're stuck with, that they just, areas behind their homes are weird tight fits. Like there's so many parcels that don't necessarily fit the bill of just like a developer's big nice square property that they're letting go crazy, you know what I mean? Anyway, Trevor, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, a lot of it's just expectation of maintenance, especially on properties because they can vary so big in size, right? So you could have a half-acre property that's not as hard to maintain the weeds on that and keep them down. But then you also have, 10 to 100 acres that would take a lot to maintain and consistently bring those down, because by the time you're done, you have to start back over in a week, right? So, and it's hard because you're up to the elements, right? If it's hot and we haven't had a lot of moisture, then we don't have to worry about that. But if we're having a lot of moisture consistently, then we're seeing a lot of spikes. So I think it's a lot to deal with. Just they're more complex than a single family home in those instances, and so it gives us some leeway and wiggle room. However, I do know, talking with Ty, he has a list of those major properties and talks to them consistently to see where they're at and maintaining them. But then we have properties that kind of take advantage of that, and so we're trying to balance. It's all a balancing act. Anytime with code enforcement it's like a pendulum, right? We could choose to be relaxed and we have a lot of issues pop up, and then a lot of ancillary issues come, that then we'll be super rigid, and then we have a lot of turmoil and upset residents and things like that. So we just want to strike a good balance with customer service as we do.
And sometimes it creates a code enforcement burden on us, an enforcement burden, if those properties are just consistently in violation because we've created difficulty for them, and so then we're stuck trying to enforce it, and it's near impossible. And I don't know. Anyway, those are some thoughts. We really appreciate the comments tonight. So, do we have any other comments from the public that you would like? No, seeing none, we'll move on to the business portion of our agenda. The first item is the finance report. This is for the final quarter of last year's budget. We use a fiscal year, which goes from July until June. So this is to wrap us up as a summary for the final quarter of our last fiscal year's budget. Corey Christensen?
Corey Christensen, Finance Director. So as Madam Mayor mentioned, looking kind of, here is your sneak peek of the year. I do apologize, as noted on here. We have had a few complications, one over the year and more recently, that have prevented everything from being recorded. So if you scroll down to the actual report there, you're going to see some large variances in that fourth column from the left there, where you're looking at year-to-date actuals, what we budgeted. So top section is revenues. There's some large discrepancy there, only because haven't quite recorded all the revenues going back through April through June, just given workloads, vacancies in the past. So you'll see those numbers in the final audit be much closer to what we budgeted. So in your first category of taxes, there'll be some lingering property taxes coming in, but your sales tax is the big one there that we haven't recorded for a few months. Your intergovernmental revenues, that's our gas tax and our Class C roads tax that we get that haven't been fully recorded. And then your charges for services, the bigger discrepancies is that would be our administrative service fees and our ambulance revenue that just have been recorded for these final months. If you look at the expenditures, we've also showing, there's variances there. We've had some payroll issues as of late, and so the final couple pay periods in June haven't been recorded there. So once those post, well, they posted now, they just didn't get on this report when we had to submit it. That's gonna true up those numbers to be not as big of variances for those. Let's see if I have some notes on the next page. So that is our general fund revenue, is that first page. Second page looks at all of our other funds that we have, and some of the same things apply. Other things, this is just a little nuance of how we budget. So if you look at the variance for rat tax, oddly enough, we didn't actually create a budget for that in the fiscal year 26, but we received revenue, not necessarily a concern. So there's going to show a variance there. And several of these other funds, what we do whenever there's going to be the use of fund balance, we budget it, but it's not really something that we recognize because it's already in the fund balance. So that kind of skews the numbers a little bit when you look at some of those funds, because we dip into some of the reserves to cover certain year project expenses. But again, it's a weird just budgeting thing. So it looks like there's a large variance, but in reality, it's because we use fund balance and how we have to budget and show we're using it as a line item. That's just how it's captured there. So that's really it for me, unless there's any other specific questions you had about some of these summary categories.
Questions from the council? Councilmember Sir?
Is there, I mean, assuming these are true, but is there anything that you're concerned about?
No, because we made some budget amendments, kind of true up a lot of our revenues. So those variances are going to be smaller there. We're coming in pretty close to what those budget amendments would be. And the same with the expenditures. We kind of cleaned up and adjusted for where we are. So overall, we're staying within budget.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate the report. All right, we'll turn to the second item, which is a public hearing and a explanation of ordinance 26-05, which creates some code updates to titles 1 and 2 of the Clinton City Code. So these are some things that Lisa's been working on, updates to some statutory references. There were some legislative changes in some of these areas over the past couple of years that we haven't actually updated our own code to reflect. And so this will do that and get these sections in line with state code. Clarifying some procedures, updating references to the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act and grandma, just kind of making sure that those are clear, that our code references that. We're hoping that in some of these cases, as we go throughout the years, that we can take those sections that the legislature seems to continue to meddle with and just reference the state code instead of repeating the state code in our own code. And then every time they meddle with it, we have to go back and fix our code. We'll just cut out our own part of our code and just reference the state code. And then we can let them have at it. And so we've done that in a couple of these cases, like with regard to the way you fill vacancies on the city council, the legislature's changed that. Electronic meetings, that changes as technology has changed and in the aftermath of COVID. So we are just aligning our code with some of those things. There is also a section here that I want to particularly draw your attention to. In Title II is also the term limits that we added last year. What we have added right here onto this ordinance is a repeal of that chapter 217 because we have received feedback from the League of Cities and Towns, who their deputy director is the former state elections director. And so he worked a lot with the Utah Attorney General's office, and they have been advising municipalities that term limits could very likely be illegal under state code. Now, there are other people who might say that they think it's just fine, and so that's just the advice that we got from those groups that are invested in those topics. And so the league's deputy director was explaining to me that the state code outlines the requirements for someone to become a candidate, right? And so it basically says an individual, this is the phrasing in the code, an individual may become a candidate for any municipal office if, and then it says the list of what the ifs are, and it's if they are meeting the residency requirements and the registered voter requirements, right? And so it lists those requirements. And so their position that he described to me is that because the code already very particularly outlines the requirements, it's very possible that a court would say their intent was not to add more requirements here or to allow the adding of more requirements here because they so specifically laid out the requirements. And so it has not been challenged in court. There are only like, we are one of only like 3 municipalities in the entire state that has even attempted to do this. And it was last year, we didn't have a ton of conversation or research about it. And so anyway, this ordinance here includes a repeal of that on the assumption that it is not conducive to a court challenge. Now, it's up to the city council if you would like to leave it in there and just, and make it and hope that it doesn't get challenged, or to repeal it here. What I would suggest is that our rules of procedure generally require us to take a vote on a different night from the night that we hold a public hearing on an ordinance update. Because of the nature of this item, I would suggest that we not vote on this tonight and that we follow that rule. But this is up to the city council how you'd like to proceed on this topic. And anyway, so are there questions from the city council before I open the public hearing on this? Councilmember Christensen.
Madam Mayor, when you say we, who's the we that has been having the conversations with the league?
Oh, so me, I have been having this conversation. Oh, Trevor, does that sound? Yeah, okay. Just to get this information, so that's why I included the deputy director's explanation here of what they've been sending to cities. And so they've been telling cities that what actually happened is after our city approved those last year, I ended up going to an event where I ran into them and they said, "So what you doing, Clint?" And it was kind of that as we had a conversation. I said, "Oh, well," and they're like, "We've been advising cities that there's some real risk involved with that." And I said, "Okay, well, let's talk again in the future." And so I have reached out to them. I had a couple council members expressed interest in bringing the topic up again, and some members of the public. And so I thought, well, I'll bring it up again with them and see what they have to say. And so he sent me all of this information, including his quote, for us to be able to use as part of our conversation. So yeah, anyway, that's where it is. Councilmember Stowe.
I'm curious why, like the first time we see anything like this is here versus in the work session.
Mostly because I was figuring you wouldn't vote on it, so then you could decide if you wanted to either eliminate this from the bunch and then bring it back to some other thing, or you could decide to vote on it in 2 weeks, or you could decide you don't want to deal with it at all and tell me that. It was mostly because I thought this would be a good opportunity to see where you stand, knowing this information now. Because it might be that you don't even care about having a work session if you trust this analysis, or maybe you don't care about this analysis and you'd rather just leave it and not bother with the work session. Do you know what I mean? So I wanted to have the options in front of us for how to proceed. And then if you wanted to look more in depth, we absolutely will. Councilmember Artie.
I don't know if I'm included in the we that Councilmember mentioned, but I didn't talk to the league specifically, but I did a ton of research on term limits and whatnot, and found that just as another example to kind of add to it is Syracuse City back in like October of last year, looked into it, and they had like in a work session where they discussed term limits and came to the conclusion as well that they felt it potentially could be against the law. Again, nothing's been proven, no court has ruled on it, but just that based on this same kind of information. And so I just found that in their meeting minutes based off what their lawyer had to say, just to kind of add another reference to that.
Thanks, Councilor. So I guess I could say, the idea here is that we were creating updates to Title II that would align it with state code. And so that fell into that category of here's what we could argue based on our information from our advisors would align this better with state code. If you see it that way and you feel like it's well categorized that way, then you can pass it along with these other updates. If you don't see it that way, you want to pull it out, you want to study more, that's also a possibility. And so, yeah. And other cities have been having this conversation in many, many cases, and most of them are landing in that camp of we're not gonna go there because it's murky, it's very murky. But I'm sure you can find someone who would argue that it's fine, you know, so, but those advisors, so the deputy director of the league, they worked with the attorney general's office all the time on their elections issues, and so they had advised, he said they had advised them, their lawyers, that they felt like it wouldn't pass muster with regard to the code because the code was so specific in its way of listing the existing requirements. Councilmember Danson.
Question, so what kind of studies have been done on this? Like the previous council, I guess, just decided to do this, or was it actually like discussed and actual research done about it?
No, we didn't really do it a whole lot. It was kind of a whirlwind, like a last minute thing. And that's the other point, is like maybe it would be helpful to do some actual research. There aren't really good studies about municipal term limits out there. I tried at the time because we didn't have much of a runway, but I tried desperately to like scrounge up whatever information I could. And there aren't good studies on term limits at the municipal level. There are a lot of them on term limits at the state legislative level and congressional level.
We did have input from our city attorney, right, Todd Godfrey. And I would like to hear from him as well. I mean, we discussed it over the course of multiple meetings, right, and work sessions. But no, we didn't. It might not have been in huge steps, but I'm sure if we go back to the agendas, we can find.
I would love to do that.
But I would like to hear like from Mr. Godfrey and his opinion as well.
Yeah, so I actually asked him today, we had a meeting this morning, I said, we're gonna talk about this, do you have an opinion? And he said that he's like, you can make arguments that it's not against the law, but he said, he knows that that's the league's position and everything. What was the phrasing he said, Trevor? He said, I'm not opposed to the idea that that there's not enough evidence that it's a great plan, so you don't have to go forward with it, right? Like he was like, yeah.
Yeah, typically, I mean, in case of this with state law, there's two camps, right? Where the state law is silent, you can say, well, it allows us to do it, or maybe because of the provisions, it doesn't allow it. And if it doesn't speak to it precisely, then we often lean on the court cases to help us with that interpretation, right? And I think that's the issue with this, is that because there's no case law supporting interpretation, there could be a wide array, right? Where, you know, we talked to Todd last year about it. I don't remember a lot of conversations in work sessions, but I did have a conversation with Todd around the meeting about it last year. He had the same opinion at that point, was you could implement this. There's nothing in state law that expressly prohibits it, but there's also nothing in state law that expressly allows it, right? And so you have to rely on some inferences from other codes in making that determination. And so his advice, and this is the quote, is that it typically on these instances you become a pioneer, and typically pioneers die, but they do make the way for other things to happen.
Yeah,
right?
He said pioneers die. He said, I've never recommended a city to do this Pioneers.
Yes. But there's a lot of legal interpretation around because it hasn't been decided, right? And so, at a risk tolerance level on my side, it's always, I'm averse to litigation. I don't really go to seek it. In some instances, maybe I'm like, bring it on, let's do it. But most of the cases, it's like, I think we're okay sitting it out. We have it on the books, never been challenged yet because we haven't gone through the times. There is another thing that we've got to look at right now. There's a big microscope on local government, but there isn't always a microscope on local government. And so sometimes term limits actually weed out the people who are willing and able to continue in those fields. And then there have been instances in other jurisdictions where we haven't had enough people to run. And so we're trying to recruit people to do that, or you appoint somebody to a position rather than go through a rented process. And having enough candidates to go through the election process, right? Not that that's necessarily a bad thing for any appointments, right? We've done that. And the mayor was subject to appointment, Dane, Jennifer, all of those are legitimate ways to do that. But there's just some risk in having no candidates on an election cycle, right? And so there's some tolerance on that. So it's all risky. And everything you guys do there's a lot of risk involved in it. Right. So the recommendation is you could do it, but it could lead to some legal challenges in the future, and also some maybe ill intent or ill will in the future, right? That can happen. So as a professional, at a local level, I'm not typically in favor of term limits because it does put some limitations on the number of people and kind of the flexibility of local government that needs to happen. So.
Well, and yeah, the local government situations are different from what happens in higher levels of government, and the dynamics are different. What happened last year too, though, we really had, one of the problems I had with this, because I ended up voting no on it at the time, was that we did not have time to study it. And so we had not gone through any work session on it. And in fact, we got it in our agenda on a Friday night over Memorial Day weekend, and the vote occurred on Tuesday. And so I scrambled that whole weekend, like it ruined my entire weekend. I had to fight to find every information I could to put it out to try to get feedback from residents, whatever. And so I thought that our process was not conducive to finding what the best result would be in the first place. And so that's the other reason here where I thought, we could look at this one of two ways. You could look at it in terms of, is it an issue of legal advisability? Is it prone to a challenge in court? And if so, we can just repeal on those grounds and not bother with discussing the merits of term limits. Or you can move it to a category of, we're skeptical of the idea of a legal challenge. We're skeptical of the legality, and so we actually do want to discuss the merits of the term limits. And if you do that, then I would suggest going through a much more rigorous process than what was done last year to determine whether or not that's something the council wants to go forward with, and if it's a risk the council is willing to take. That's my joke.
I don't have a problem with discussing it again. I just don't want to see it. If you're saying that, you guys felt like it was just like rushed through, I'd like to not see the same thing happen again. So if we want to discuss it again, I'm open to that.
Sure.
Madam Mayor. I guess I want to echo one of the points you made earlier about the it's not on the street right now, but just the idea right now that we're cleaning up Titles 1 and 2, right, of bringing it into state compliance or matching state code, right? And so by repealing it doesn't mean it can't be added back in after we have a lengthy discussion, but for right now, it's part of cleaning up. I think it helps align the goal of this agenda item. And I don't mind discussing it later on, but I also voted no for it at the time too, for many reasons. One being that I did feel like it was just wedged in there, rushed, and everyone I talked to over that weekend trying to gain some understanding is people's first initial comment was, yeah, I'm for term limits. And then say, okay, well, let's talk, like, what does that mean? And then they'd say, well, yeah, like Orrin Hatch, he was in there for 100 years. He should have a term limit. It's like, no, I'm not talking about federally, I'm talking about your local people. And to Trevor's point, as you talk to them more, it got into actually local wise, we are more intact we're more familiar with these people and we can kind of police quote unquote term limits, right? By naturally removing people if we feel have been in too long through the voting process or keeping them in if we want and all that goes into it. So there's the more conversations I had with people about term limits is it wasn't the initial idea that a lot of people agree on with federal term limits. It was when you got to the specifics of local elections, they were like, oh no, that doesn't make sense as much. So I would be for repealing it and then talking about it later as the games come.
Well, we will have to do a public hearing tonight on this ordinance that's before us. So some options would be like you could decide to just take the public hearing on this topic here. You could we could move the vote on it to 2 weeks from now, or you could have further discussion in a future meeting and then postpone the vote to even farther out. You could break that out of these code updates and make it its own separate thing, or you could wait on all of the code updates and do them all together in the future. Anyway, be thinking of these options. I'm gonna open the public hearing unless there are other questions from the council. Okay, Councilmember Christensen.
It's more of a commentary than a question. I have had some things on my mind and I didn't bring them up during our work session today because I actually thought our work session was fantastic. I thought it was one of our better work sessions where we've actually had the opportunity for real collaboration. My concern right now is we're looking into these updates. You know, term limits is not the hill that I'm dying on today. You know, I have opinions and I would like to look at it more fully, but overall, I feel like I personally would like to be more involved in conversations pertinent to the business of our city. And I feel like we need to look more closely at the roles and responsibilities because I feel like we do have too many unilateral decisions that are being made without the involvement of the full council. Too often we get information after decisions have already been made behind the scenes. And I don't feel like the full council has an opportunity to be aware of what's happening and what's being planned. And it makes me wonder if we are perhaps circumventing some of the rules outlined in the city code. So I wanted to bring that up as we're talking about roles and responsibilities, clarification, because I want to be sure that we are using our time together in collaboration, working as a team, and really having everybody included in the conversation. I want to be clear that I am not intending any type of personal attack in this conversation. But I want to come across that I know the intentions are good and hard work is being done all around for the benefit of our community, but I feel like there's a question of whether the role of our mayor is to steer policy direction or more to set the vision and facilitate conversation with the rest of the city council. I would like to personally be more involved in the research and data analysis and problem solving and behind the scenes conversations. And I'd like to have more conversations, more opportunities. I know that there are responsibilities that are outlined clearly in our code that are the mayor's responsibility, and I respect that role. I would also like to see more delegation and more involvement of the whole council to be involved in conversations and completing action items. It feels to me like we have some imbalance with our city council, with the role of our city manager and the mayor. And I would like to see more collaboration. And so as we're looking at clarifications here and opening a public hearing, I feel like it would have been nice to have heard more about some of these things earlier in the process.
Thank you. No, that's great. That's good comment. So, you'll appreciate, I think, one of the things I was gonna bring up during my mayor's report later, which is a recommendation that we set up some committees, some council committees one of the topics that I was envisioning was a code committee, where we can actually have members of the city council walk through our code and help kind of steer, like, here's some sections that we think are problematic, and here's whatever, and be a part of that, the creation process, like you're describing, that you're feeling like, oh, I want to be more part of that. So I was really hopeful that, and we can talk more about that when we get down to that section, but maybe that would help address some of your concerns. We've had limited time at these little 45-minute work sessions that we've had, so it's really hard to figure out how can we stuff it all in, to have everyone have a role in the creative process, because I know everyone's busy with their schedules. So for this one, these code updates, not the term limits, but every single one of the other ones aren't ones that even needed to be discussed by anyone, because they just have to be changed like this. They're already just becoming compliant with state code. So that wasn't something that would even be worth the council's time for us to have brought to them. And that's usually what we try to do, is the things that are just no-brainers, that are administrative, that just have to be changed. We wouldn't, waste your time in a work session on those. But this term limits thing, you actually could. So the term limits, that idea was launched by Councilmember Arby. He had reached out to me and said, can we put that on the agenda? And so I was, responding to his request as a council member to add that in so that we can have that discussion today. So hopefully that gives you some context for kind of why we're here with these items. But I love the idea of having the council have more ability to use their expertise and their visionary help, and it would help take a burden, I think, off of some of the staff too, to have that participation, right? So I think that's a great comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we need to be very cautious of our terminology, because even just now, I heard you say we and you. We don't want to waste your time. We're all part of the same city council, including the mayor. And so if there's a division that there's we that doesn't include the rest of us, that's problematic.
Well, I just meant because I have to produce the agenda with Lisa, and so it's like we who are producing this thing here is what I meant. Just that we wouldn't put in a work session the topic of these items that are like no-brainer things. That's all I meant by the wasting.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway. Councilmember Short.
Maybe for the benefit of the council, it would be helpful in a future work session to go over what kind of things the council can be expected to be involved in, and what things we couldn't. Like, for example, one of the things that comes to my mind is like was it the Clinton comeback week?
Yeah.
Like that was like presented as like a council thing. I didn't hear anything about it until like a week or two,
For sure.
I would have, been happy to, to help, right? Like
Yes.
that was right up my alley, right? That's what I spent 30 years doing, business promotions and such. But yeah, so maybe, and maybe that's just for me, that was just, something that shouldn't have been, the council's, purview, right? But maybe that, would help all of us, that
Yeah.
these are the kind of things that we should be expected to participate in, and these are the kind of things that, are just gonna happen, we'll be informed.
Yeah, so I would love for you to be able to participate in whatever you want to participate in. That's how I would, but I guess I've kind of got the impression that everyone's super busy or stressed and doesn't have the time to come to another meeting or something, anyway. But so I think you're right, that would be good to lay down some expectations, what do we have time for, what do we want to be part of, and all of that. So I like it. I think that's great. Yeah, and so that's why I say, this sky's the limit. You guys this is just an option being presented for you, and you don't have to do this, and you don't have to feel obligated to do it. And there are lots of options, whether you break it apart or, push it down the road or whatever. So let's do the public hearing. Oh, yes, Councilmember Larson.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that I appreciate so much the level of effort that you put into the job that you're doing. And I know that for many of us, as I sit here joining virtually from the other side of the world, that we're limited on the amount of time we can spend, and grateful to be involved in what we are. I think until something is put before a vote, then we're still talking about it. And so I think it's, I don't disagree with any of the comments that have been made about, trying to find opportunities for us to discuss the important matters in advance. But I believe that there are some things that are more administrative in nature, or that have little impact or bearing on our citizens, that probably don't need as much conversation. But I appreciate that you're giving us the opportunity to either vote on this or to take it out and put it somewhere else. So I appreciate that we're being given the opportunity to do that now. And I'm all in favor of additional conversations around term limits. I remember at the time it was passed, I was attending the meeting as a citizen and really never had a good understanding of what the motivation was to be putting that provision. I think the only response that was given was that it's very difficult to beat an incumbent. And then we proceeded to have 2 incumbents beaten in the next election. So I'm not sure that's a good argument for having term limits, is because it's too hard to get somebody out. If somebody's not doing a good job, they'll get voted out. And we've seen that. So I just think we can absolutely have more conversation, but I did want to take this chance to say that Trevor has a full-time job to do that. You are expected to do more than the rest of the council does. And that's, alluded to in the compensation that's provided. So I appreciate all the extra work that you're doing, and appreciate that we have the opportunity to vote, which is really when things will make an impact, is when they get passed by the council. So just wanted to give my 2 cents there.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I think that's a good point. Like, one of the main ways the council does exercise their power and their decision making is through this process at the council meetings, where you're able to have something presented to you, and then you can make a motion on it as to how you want to proceed. And so, yeah, that's one of the main ways of the use of council power. So, all right, other thoughts before I open the
Mayor, just one more real quick. I'd like to just add a compliment in how early and often we're getting our agendas. I personally am grateful that they get out a week beforehand, and I have time to look at it. And so you mentioned that I brought up the term limits, and I appreciated getting it, seeing that it would fit in with this agenda item, and you hearing me out to add it as part of that. So I appreciated having the week to really think about it, talk about it, get it, in and have my thoughts. So I do appreciate the extra effort as well. Thanks.
Oh, Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do think, I'm interested to hear the mayor's report, because, again, this is not any type of negativity toward you. I appreciate the work that you do as our mayor, and I know that you research things more thoroughly than anyone else in the history of the world. I feel like, as we get more training and learn as a group, where we are able to speak up and say, this is where I'd like to have more say. And when we're able to say, I would like to communicate more clearly with the city manager, or I would like to know how to bring up, that I would like something added to an agenda. Those are all areas where we can grow as a city council. So I appreciate you hearing that perspective. And I feel like it's important that the public knows that this is work. As we're trying to figure out what's best for our city, it's not easy, and decisions that are made all have consequences. So I won't take up any more time on this, but I did just want to clarify, as we're clarifying, as the summary says, what does that really look like in action?
I love that, and I think that's a great point, and I love that you want to be a part of everything, right? Like, I respect that so much. I think it's great. That's what the public wants from you, so love it. All right. Okay, so now we will open the public hearing on ordinance 26-05 and to see if anybody has comments here tonight on that topic. If you do, you can come forward and state your name and city of residence for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes. It's 8:06, and we'll start now.
Daniel Martinez, Clinton. So, yeah, the term limit thing seems, yeah, I don't understand why that's a thing for local, municipalities. It doesn't seem very, I kind of agree with Trevor on that, where like it doesn't even make sense. So you would be eliminating kind of a pool of people to run. What I did have a little concern, or I would have a question for is, you had mentioned something about, we won't come to the council with just small little administrative things. Who decides what those small little administrative things are that will affect the public? I guess that's who's making that decision? Is that you, or is that you guys? Like, is it the League of Towns? Like, you know, who would make that decision to inform this rest of the city council about that? So.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, it's Trevor, it's me, it's staff, it's all of us, and it has to be that way. There is so much stuff that if we were to try to bring everything to the city council, and I actually don't know everything, because I have this interesting executive position and legislative mix. That's the way it's set up in Utah government, for municipalities of our size. And so I have this almost dual role where I have an executive part, and then I'm the chair of the legislative body. And so I'm the chair, meaning that I bring forward the agenda items. So yes, I do work with Trevor and the staff to decide what's actually salient for the council, what's important, what's relevant to them. And there are all kinds of things that are administrative in their nature, and then there are things that are legislative in their nature. And those are actually quite clear in most cases to us. We're not just, you know, we would never come up with something that we're like, some big thing that we know would matter to the council, and then we just don't take it to them. We wouldn't really be able to do that, because the way that state law is written, it requires that you do your work, much of the work of the city via resolution and ordinance. If it's either spending a certain amount of money, or bringing a liability against the city, or creating new policy. So if it's policy oriented, then we have to take it to the council. We might not take it to them in multiple steps, because it might not warrant that level of scrutiny. It would be brought just in a single step, and it would be told, this is minutia. You're welcome to read it through and see for yourself that it's minutia, and then please feel free to vote on it, or you can tell us whatever you want, and they get to choose. They get to say, I'm making a motion to do this, and they, as a body, a majority, have the power to do whatever they want. But the vast majority of those other little things that are being done day to day are the execution of those policies that were created, right? And so the council doesn't need to know every single item, or it would just bury them. We would be stuck in a rut. We wouldn't be able to go forward. So there's all kinds of stuff that Trevor does all the time, day to day, that I don't ever hear about at all. But then he'll bring more high level stuff to me, and we'll decide, does that need to go to the council? Yeah, and we just know that it does. It's just obvious to us.
Yeah, typically my guiding star is this a policy decision, or is this administration of that policy, right? And so our code is set up that it says I'm responsible for all administrative actions of the city. The mayor is then responsible to inspect the work that is being done. So the mayor is the executive to ensure that the execution of the policy is being met, and then report that to the council on that execution. But the mayor is part of the council body, right? So in state code, it establishes 6-member council. I'm going to do this real fast. 6-member council. It selects the mayor as the chief executive officer. But then state law allows the council to delegate the administrative authority to a city manager if they so choose. And that's what we've done in our code. And so in that, effectively, the council has hired me to administrate. So I report to the whole body as the council, but my day-to-day interactions with the council lie with the mayor. So that I don't have to call each of them and say, hey, I just did this, hey, I just did this, I did that. I work with the mayor on that. And generally, if there are administrative decisions that have some policy like tinge to it, the mayor and I will have a conversation and say, hey, is this within the policy that we've set forth? And if we're both like, no, it's not very clear, let's bring that to the council. But if it's like, no, we can see in our code, this is where it's laid out, then we will go with that. And so it's kind of that balance where my role as the chief administrative officer versus the chief executive officer, and the fact that she is ensuring that the policy decisions from the legislative body remain enacted.
Thank you so much. Are there any other comments for the public hearing? All right, thank you. Seeing none, then we'll take it back to the city council to see what direction you want to head with this topic for this ordinance tonight.
Madam Mayor, what's our usual policy to, like, how do we do it for 2 weeks, right, for a vote?
Oh, so you just vote to postpone?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
A vote to postpone?
Yeah, to postpone it for 2 weeks, yeah. You can set a date if you want, or you can postpone indefinitely.
I'll make a motion that we postpone it to the next city council meeting.
And you mean, and keep it as a whole?
Yeah, keep it as a whole chunk.
Okay, all right, so I have a motion from Councilmember RV to postpone ordinance 26-05 to 2 weeks from now at our meeting on July 28th. And do I hear a second?
I second that.
And also I hear a second from Councilmember Danson. All right, so that's open to debate, and so then Councilmember RV, since you made the motion, you are allowed first choice for discussion.
Thank you. I don't know, I have much more to say on it other than what I said before the public hearing. So I'll just keep it brief that I feel it's now has enough time to breathe and think about, and then, you know, come next week, or sorry, 2 weeks, we'll be able to have a discussion about it before we vote.
Okay, is there further discussion from the council? Councilmember Christensen?
I don't know how to phrase what I'd like to do properly, so please help me, Madam Mayor, with the rules of order.
Are you wanting to make a substitute motion or amend it in some way?
What I'd like to do is move forward with some of these, just, you know, with the changes and the updates that were made. But I would like to pull out 217 to give us more opportunity to discuss that separately, simply because I wasn't part of that original conversation about term limits, and I would like more opportunity to learn more about that. But I don't want to hold up moving forward with the rest of this recommendation.
Okay, and just to clarify, so under our rules of procedure already, because this is an ordinance and we had a public hearing on it tonight, our rules require us to not vote on it tonight and to vote on it at a future date in 2 weeks. And so you'd have to do that for the rest of it anyway. And so what you could do is just decide to do what you want, what you just described, in 2 weeks and pull the title 217 out of it at that point, if you want even more discussion. Does that make sense? And then vote on it then?
Mm-hmm.
Or you would have to make a motion to suspend the rules if you literally want to vote on the rest of those provisions tonight.
Hasn't been our standard operating procedure when we do have things that are clearly administrative that we waive that rule.
Yeah.
The rest of it all does seem to me like it is just purely administrative and just needs to be done.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, so you could amend the motion or make a motion to amend.
I think it would be, you know, I mean, it's just my opinion. I think it would be reasonable for us to approve the rest of these at this time and then discuss the rest of it, the 217 on its own. That's just my opinion.
So the motion, the motion would be, I would like to suspend the rules to move to vote on the rest of the recommendation, repealing 217.
But what you'll need to do is say this, I say that you need to make a motion to both suspend the rules to allow a vote tonight on the same night as the public hearing, and to amend the motion to remove titles 217 and leave the other provisions intact.
Okay,
Would you like to just say so?
I would love to so move exactly, you said it, Madam Mayor.
All right, so we have a motion to replace Councilmember Arabi's motion. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, and then a second from Councilmember Danson. And so this will just require a majority vote. And if it passes, then the new motion will be that we're gonna suspend the rules or it will mean that the rules are suspended, and then the new motion will be that we're voting on the remainder without 217. And that you're moving 217 to 2 weeks from now. Okay. Okay, so now that everyone's clear on what's before us, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay. Councilmember Larson, did I hear anything from you?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes with a majority vote. And so now the rules are suspended, allowing us to vote tonight, even though we had a public hearing on a very easily just technical item that didn't get much feedback. And we will now take the vote. We'll not take the vote. We'll now have the new motion on the table. And the new motion is, or on the floor, is that we're gonna have this move forward 217 to talk about it in 2 weeks and vote on these other provisions tonight. And so Councilmember Christensen, since that's your motion, you can make the discussion on it.
Thank you. I just to reiterate, these other things can move forward. They're administrative in nature. They don't change how we are operating. The repeal of 217 is something that I would like more time to think of and consider and look at the relevant legislation. Simply because I was not here when this passed, and I don't want to do the same thing that happened to the previous council.
Perfect. Any other comments? Okay, awesome. And just to clarify, this literally is a legislative item, even though it seems administrative in nature, because it's just a bit benign technical language, is what we'll call it. Okay, perfect. Seeing no further comment, we will now take a vote. And so because this is an ordinance, we'll have a roll call vote from the council, starting with Councilmember Christensen.
Yes.
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 Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Perfect. So that passes unanimously. Thank you so much. We will put the term limits on the next council agenda for discussion. You guys can do research in the meantime, and I'll look at that good stuff. And so now you know what's coming down the pipeline. Love it.
Mayor,
Yeah, that's what we said.
when we get, I don't know, a statement or something, I would like to hear, Attorney Godfrey's thoughts, like first person.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you.
We'll get that to you. We'll make sure it's put in the packet, the agenda packet. Okay, awesome. All right, the next item on our business agenda is fiscal year 2025-26 fraud risk assessment report. So we'll go ahead and have Corey Christensen make that.
Round two. Corey Christensen, Finance Director, Madam Mayor, Council. This is something that we as staff are required to do every fiscal year, is do this fraud risk assessment. So Office of the State Auditor requires it. They give us a checklist of all the questions to ask, and we review whether or not we have certain policies in place and procedural practices in place. And then we earn points which then go into our total score to give us our overall risk level. So as Steve and I sat down, went through, as you can see, we've scored all the different areas as far as do we have something in place on this to give us a score. If you scroll down, I believe we fell in the moderate category. So
So the tank. There it is.
Oh, over on the left, over 305. So yeah, we're squarely in that moderate category, and historically, that's generally where we've been over the last 5 years. I believe is in that moderate category. Generally, not a lot changes as far as our policies in place. The one thing that may change is our level of, gosh, I'm losing my words on this. Our controls. I think people with different experience, different backgrounds, look at a control and whether it has sufficient strength or maybe it is a little weak in certain categories. So that's really where the variance lies. We still have something in place, and that's where we as the finance staff are constantly reviewing, okay, is this process that we have in place, this dual control element or the review process, is it sufficient to a level that we're comfortable with as far as, is it strong enough for our overall operations to give us the comfort of saying, yeah, we're addressing any potential for fraud. So that's one thing to think about when we have controls, and we evaluate kind of our processes regularly to say, yeah, we need to tweak this a little bit, given our staffing levels and who's doing which responsibilities those have shifted. So those generally can change on a practical level in a given year, but the practice is still there, so we get the score. But nothing really at this point to report other than we're going to evaluate certain things I already have in mind that we're going to say, let's just tweak this and adjust this process a little bit to strengthen the control a little bit or to enhance it. Any questions for me?
Questions from the council? Councilor Danson?
I do have one question.
Yes.
So this way on the next page, when we look at the basic separation of duties, I did notice that we do have one response saying no and no mitigating circumstances or anything next to it. It's number 6. Does someone other than the clerk review periodic reports of all general ledger accounts to identify unauthorized payments recorded in those accounts? He said no, but then we didn't put a check mark. I'm assuming that was just a
omission.
Okay.
No, and maybe because that's the one that I was talking with Steve, is one that we have the control, but I feel like we can enhance it.
Okay.
And then I just forgot to check that.
To do the check.
Okay.
Just making sure. I saw that. I was like, good catch.
Any other comments from the council? Thank you so much. That's great. All right. Okay, and so now we'll move to our consent items. Well, I don't need to accept that file. It was just a notice.
That was just a presentation.
Okay. Consent items. So we have the award bid on the pump house, which is fantastic, and also an expensive project, but it'll be nice to get that done. Many of you know that we put in that new well that we were drilling last year, and it's just if you go over there, it just looks like there's just little things sticking out of the ground. So it needs the housing, and then eventually it's going to need a storage tank and all of that for it to just become fully functioning. We have this Dave here. Oh yeah, we do have Dave here. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask about that. But you'll notice this one has this was the low bid that came in, MJM Construction, 2.29 million. So it's just so expensive. But this will be paid for. We already have the money figured out for this one, paid for from multiple sources, including some grant funding through the Bureau of Reclamation. So any questions on that one for Dave while he's here? Okay. All right, then the other stuff we have on here is just the Public Treasurer's Investment Fund certification authorizing individuals. So we just had old authorizations on there from prior employees. And so we're just updating that, make sure that Trevor and Steve are properly authorized to access that investment fund for us.
Do it again in 3 months. So
Yeah, and Steve retires He loves seeing his name on there one last time. Okay. And then, of course, the meeting minutes and the accounts payable. So any questions on any of these consent items? Okay, then do I hear a motion?
You want me to super quick comment?
Oh, yeah.
I was very pleased to see that there were 7 bidders. on
Yes.
Stuff. I think a lot of times we see things where there's 1 or 2. I mean, 7 is just fantastic.
It was fantastic and it helps us feel more confident in the results. So I appreciate that comment. Thank you. Anything else? Great. Do I have a motion on the consent items?
Yeah, I move that we adopt the consent items.
Wonderful. And I have a motion from Councilmember Downson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Arby. We don't have any resolutions or ordinances in here, and so we'll just do a majority voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we will move to the other business on our schedule, on our agenda, which we will start off with a little report from our fire chief, Jason Polson, if he'll come up. We just need to hear, the council just needs to hear a little bit about fireworks.
Okay.
Not everybody,
Look on his face.
I looked at Trevor like, "Ooh."
not everybody's heard from you about it. How it all went down. How are we doing, chief?
So we're doing really well. It was business as usual. Amongst all the public yays and nays, I'll just be politically correct, was sometimes hard to see and to see the words and kind of the personal, just it was tough to see the community's comments that were against it. What we saw is we obviously had a plan. And we practiced it, we rehearsed it, we put the city in different quadrants, we had multiple people out, we had CERT out, and everybody was being respectful to the law. They were following exactly the way they were supposed to. They had water sources, they were having fun, families were having a good time. And they were grateful that they got to do it. I feel like when our city manager, you and I watched Governor Cox's executive order, live press conference, we seemed to be all on the same page. We did our homework on the city and our target areas. We restricted fireworks by at least double, maybe triple in areas that normally weren't restricted. I think the governor's comments could have been a little bit different and not the ban followed by, we'll let the director of state forestry and lands work with mayors and fire officials to be able to allow fireworks. I think that caused a little bit of issues. I think maybe the news media kind of made it just a little bit worse and fueled the fire, but we felt safe about allowing our residents to, in a 95% urban grown city, to restrict areas, and they were safe, and we had 2 small fires, and one of them was out before we even got there, and that's in the 4 days. Historically, we looked at call volume during the July 4th weekends and the allowable to light fireworks, and it's been 3 and 4 calls each year here and there. So we took all the data, we looked at it, we made our best decision to allow fireworks, and it worked out just as what we thought.
Thanks, Chief. And I wanted the council to have an opportunity to share any thoughts or questions that they have, because it's very possible that the governor will renew the executive order for the 24th. And so we don't know what's going to happen on that front. And so I did want you to have the chance. We haven't met since then, so I wanted you to have the chance to weigh in. Do you have any thoughts about what we should do going forward or anything like that? I would like to hear comments if you want, or questions for the chief. Councilmember Searle?
Thank you for the opportunity for some lighthearted heckling.
Yes. Councilmember Christensen?
I thought it was well planned out as I looked at the map. I could see why specific areas were red and why others were not. And it is always interesting to see how people like to respond and say hurtful things and make accusations, but I feel like, the mayor and you, chief, represented our city very professionally. And I'm very glad that our coast city is still intact, unlike maybe neighboring cities.
Yeah, that's good. And we might make a few changes to the map to maybe make it a little bit more clear and maybe easier to read for our residents. So there's always things that we can do that maybe the residents are asking us to do to make it a little bit easier to read. And we can totally do that for the following year, but yeah.
Madam Mayor, I can't wait for the report from Corey, Finance Director Corey, to see the boost in sales tax we got from all the people that came from outside of Clinton to Clinton to shoot off their fireworks. So I look forward to that sales tax boost.
So I do have some numbers for that. We did have a few residents in other cities come light their fireworks, but they let them in a non-restricted area and they were legal fireworks. And we didn't really have too much of an issue. We did have a group of teenagers that we noticed in a senior assisted living city that as we kind of were roaming and we stopped and asked them where they're from and probably go find another place to light, and they were very respectful and they did. And we did get one arrest. We did get one arrest that we're proud to assist the police with, and worked out great.
Yeah, no, we did not have flood in the city, so yeah, Councilmember Larson.
I just wanted to say I appreciate also the diligence that you guys put into making that decision. The one thing that wasn't spoken about, and I know it doesn't outweigh the public safety, but my heart really went out to many in our community who have invested tens of thousands of dollars to open a fireworks stand. And I was really concerned about people who depend on that for a good portion of their, livability. And to have that all pulled away, I was really nervous for those people. I know some personally. So although acknowledging it's not worth public safety, to make a decision contrary, but I appreciated that we used practical measures to evaluate and make that decision. And I appreciate Mayor and Captain that you guys, or Chief, sorry, that you guys, I believe, and I know Mayor, you feel this way, that all things considered, we want to stay out of people's personal lives. And unless there is a compelling danger to the public, that we choose to allow people to govern themselves. And so I appreciate that you guys, I assume, had that in mind as you made that decision.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember. I am a huge advocate of the proper analysis of the use of power, right? And that executive power that was granted to us via the governor's order, we felt was constrained to emergency circumstances, right? And so we didn't want to act outside of those bounds because of solidarity or fear or whatever other topic. We thought we need to analyze this on the basis of extreme fire hazard or strained resources and those kinds of emergency type situations, which we deemed we did not have here. And so we took the best use of that analysis and acted on it, and I think it worked out okay. And so I appreciate that. Yeah, Councilmember Jensen.
So what's the plan for communicating stuff out so we don't get raked over the coals?
Yeah, what's interesting is that, and Councilmember Larson's talking about the people who own fireworks stands. When we, Trevor and the chief and I were talking about getting this information out to the public on Friday, it was a Friday. And we thought, oh my gosh, we have this whole weekend ahead of us, and we were already getting phone calls from the public. What are you gonna do? Can we do fireworks? We need to plan our weekend. We need to know, do we go out and buy fireworks? The fireworks stands wanted to know, are we gonna have any customers this weekend? Like, it was very stressful for them to have the weekend coming up and not have answers. So we thought, because we already know what we think the right thing to do is, why would we sit on that information? We should get it out to our residents. And what it turned out is that our fellow cities did not get their information out, and it didn't occur to us to ask them, well, when are you posting your stuff, you know? Because we thought everyone's in the same boat, we're all just making the right decisions for our communities, and so I don't know that we could have foreseen that. I will call them by name, Fox 13 and KUTV would be so derelict in their reporting and would refer to us as if we were defying the governor's order or let's see, that we were taking action to allow fireworks despite the governor's order, or in the case of KUTV, going against the governor is the phrasing. And I called their news desks, I did everything in my power to try to get them to correct their narrative, and they would not, and I thought it came to the point where it was willful. So was very frustrating for me. I don't think we're gonna enter that stage again, because now it's a whole different story, right? Once our fellow cities in North Davis County put out their maps and everyone could see, oh, they're just doing the same thing. And it was more normalized, then the narrative started to change, and we saw a complete 180 from people who were just harassing us and disparaging us to people thanking us and praising us, and it was a complete 180. It was the strangest thing ever. But so I don't suspect that we'll be in that same territory. However, it would be wise to consider an appropriate communication strategy. Assuming the governor does implement this same order again. We don't know for sure that he will, but that's at least a topic. Trevor?
I understand, so.
I understand.
No, I think in this case, you know, I've done communications for a while. It's just kind of a perfect storm of things as well, right? There's already a lot of wildfire happening in the state. Pushing the governor to have this conversation of whether cities could or could not ban fireworks. I mean, the conversation initially was, you need to allow cities to ban them because we don't have the ability. But then there are cities like ours and others around us that were like, no, we don't have to ban them because we don't have wildland interface. And so I think it was just a circumstance of there was a perfect storm ready, and we were the first ones, and the most official looking ones that got out there, right? We had.
Well, St. George did the same thing, but nobody cared about St. George. And when I said that to some of the other politicians, they were like, St. George is the Wild West.
So, yeah, I think there could be we could temper our excitement to get information out in the future, right? But it was just kind of the perfect storm. I mean, all it takes is one clickbait article on social media to trigger something. And we lived it, so.
We learn and grow, you know.
Yeah.
It's not all bad. So, yeah, what's fascinating is the way the code is written. And I actually had a conversation with our own state legislator about this topic, but the way the code is written, it's kind of a gray area because it says that cities can restrict fireworks, but it says that they can restrict them if there's wildland urban interface, or if there's an existing or historical environmental hazard. And historical has to be at least a track record of 2 years. And if there is such a hazard, then the city can restrict them in areas of mountainside, brushland, or dry grass covered areas. And so one of the things some of the feedback I gave to the league was, because they keep saying, and a lot of the cities are saying, we can't restrict fireworks because there's no definition of dry grass covered areas. So that doesn't let us do a full citywide ban. We would have to pick and choose our grass covered areas. But I've made the point that, so if the governor is using sweeping, like broad brush style governance, to have the state forester say, you know, we're going to call the entire state an extreme hazard, regardless if every single area is, then why can't cities use their own broad brush style gray area governance and claim that they're making a citywide ban due to dry grass covered areas? You know, and that's why I'm, you know, wishing that would have been the method at this point, I think. But I get that everybody's doing the best they can because people are operating under stress. And one day after we made our announcement, so that Saturday is the day that those firefighters died. And that makes everybody feel that compassion and pain, and then you mix those feelings in with the decision making, and I don't know, it's all just hard. A lot of sticky stuff. So anyway, I wanted you to have a chance to weigh in if you had feedback for us or whatever. So yes, we'll guard the. I don't know what we'll do. Maybe we just won't say anything. We'll just be like, you can find them through grandma.
I just have a little.
Yeah, Councilmember Christensen.
I did see on social media some debate about roads being closed in Clinton City for some big party that happens every year, and can we close the road and can we not close the road? Is that something that needs to be addressed?
Oh, that's a great question. Trevor, would you say to that?
Yeah, so we've actually internally had conversations about updating our special event permitting process and looking at our road closures and how that process is going through. Currently, we do allow people to host block parties and close off the road as such as there's another egress area for them to go and it doesn't block off a large portion of the city, right? And that goes through our police department currently to look at that, and then but we want to kind of make that process a little bit cleaner and better. And so I've tasked our police chief, our parks and rec director, our fire chief, and our public works director to come up with the process to help that happen. Just kind of, and part of that could be notification to surrounding residents of what's happening, just to get that that knowledge out there, right? That we're closing the road on this day for a party, and just so you're aware, there's an alternate egress, because I don't know if all of that is happening right now.
Thanks. Perfect. Anything else? Okay. That's great. All right. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate you. Sorry we made you just stand there. All right, so our city manager report.
Just real quick, I have been thinking a lot about y'all. And I realized that I have not kept up to try to have conversations with each of you just periodically. And so I'm going to be reaching out to you to see if we can set up the time to get together. So don't think it's anything other than it's just I want to take time to get to know you. What are you worried about? What are you thinking about? It's not anything super scary. So I know sometimes if I text you and you're like, what's going on? Why do you want to meet with me? It's really
You're not scary.
It's just to get to know you. I love regular interactions, but I realized that I haven't kept up on everybody in the council. So if you see that message,
It's too hard to do all that. There's just simply too much to do. You know, it just feels overwhelming.
With you all being my boss, it's really helpful if I know what you like to do and know what to do and how are you feeling about everything. So okay.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, and any reports from the council members? Councilmember Christensen?
I was so great on the 2nd of July. I saw that the planning commission had an agenda posted and I was absolutely on time to the meeting. And I came up to this building and there was no one in the parking lot. And I opened the agenda and it said meeting canceled. So I will plan to attend the next planning commission meeting, and Keaton, if there are updates that you think would be helpful for the city council to know, please let me know. I also spoke with Tangi about the youth city council. Remind me of her last name? Daly, okay. She said that the next upcoming event for the youth city council is the fire open house. So I don't know anything about that, but I'm eager to learn. And Chief, whenever that is, the youth city council is very ready to help. They would also like to have a banquet perhaps in August if there is an opportunity to plan that, where the outgoing youth city council members can interact with the new youth city council, and those things are still being scheduled.
Perfect, thank you so much. And you get brownie points for dedication, even if there wasn't a meeting. All right, we'll do Councilmember Larson since your chair is sitting there. Councilmember Larson?
Yeah, I don't have any updates today.
Perfect. Councilmember Arby?
Nothing for me.
Councilmember Searle?
So go normal at the sewer district. They were very happy to receive Casey Jensen, who introduced him at their meeting.
How do you respond to your dual loyalties?
I told them I was very happy for him on Thursday, but on Tuesday I would be very disappointed.
Yeah. That works.
Just as of next meeting, I will be required to be in a county commission meeting in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so I'll be participating the best I can via Zoom.
Oh, Tulsa.
It's really exciting.
It sounds like it. Awesome. Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Dennison?
Yeah, that's what, just a couple of things. So one thing Jennifer had mentioned though was the youth council are going to be accepting applications for the new youth council folks starting in August. And so that is going to be on there. We'll probably talk about that next meeting as well as encourage kids to look into it and join us. But then the other thing too is just the communities that care that we've worked with Fat Cats, and it looks like they've postponed their parents empowered and all their stuff there. So that's what, if you go there, you won't see anything quite yet. They're rescheduling and trying to get stuff lined up with that.
Excellent. Thanks so much for the update. Okay, and then so for my report, as I was telling you earlier, the thing that I was wanting to bring up is this idea of setting up some committees for the council. So one of them would be like a Heritage Days committee. So we could maybe have, we can't create a quorum where we have 3 council members in one place at once because that defies state law. But we could have 2 council members and do a Heritage Days committee where. And what I would like to do is maybe set some like a scope and parameters type, it doesn't have to be extensive for the committee so that they have some sense of what their responsibilities would be. But to help work on, the brainstorming and maybe even help generate some volunteerism and things like that. And we can talk more about the details. Another committee that I thought would be helpful for the council to be involved in, something that would really be helpful to me personally, is that a code committee to help us walk through the code and find the things that we feel like need to be updated or that are problematic and make some recommendations. And in some cases, if people have strong writing skills, could even help us write some sections of code if we needed to. But we could figure out again the scope and parameters, but that's just an idea I had because it's an otherwise overwhelming task. Anyway, we'd have to make sure that it's whatever we do as these committees is helpful to the staff and not meddlesome to them, but I think we'd work that out. And then Chris or Councilmember Johnson mentioned to me that he was noticing on some of his trainings with the state auditor's office the mention of an audit committee. And that's not something that we have. So obviously you saw in the fraud risk report that we didn't get the points for having an audit committee. And so that was something he was asking if we could create and be helpful in that regard. So what do you think of this idea of having some committees setting up? They would have their own separate times to meet. And so we would just, as we create them, we'd find people's interests or skill sets. I mean, I also thought we could do a budget committee too and have people walk through. Yeah, I forgot them. A budget committee and have those people, start right away, right, to help analyze sections of the budget. So thoughts on that, because yes, I do want your help and need your help and want your feedback in whatever way you're willing and wanting to give it. But also to be very respectful of your time, because I recognize it's tough to do these jobs because you already have very busy lives and you're being pulled in a lot of directions. And this is essentially a service you get paid, but such a small amount for the level of investment, and so I want to be respectful of that too. Recognizing that you're only required to come to your city council meetings and cast your votes and make your motions, right? That's your requirement. But if you want to go beyond that in that service and really contribute and find ways to have a stronger voice, I'm here for that. So what do you think? Councilmember Searle?
I think we should put it on a work session and hash it out.
Yeah.
Let's figure out, that's something, that's totally a topic for a work session, right? Make all those types of decisions.
You bet.
Let's do it.
And maybe I could come up with some ideas for some of those so that you have something to think on through the week as you get your agenda. some scope ideas if I talk to Trevor and work with him. Yeah. Okay, other thoughts on that? Councilmember Christensen?
When I was thinking about having a city council liaison to Heritage Days, Heritage Days has a committee, so I would want to be very careful that we're not stepping on toes or over inserting, but I think it, you know, if Brooke would be open to that idea, that was my original thought was just having a city council member be part of that so that we can share information and participate and help. I mean, like you said, be useful, but I don't want to create new committees that overlap existing committees.
Sure, absolutely. And I actually don't think we have a Heritage Days committee anymore. Like you wouldn't call it committee. Yeah, I mean, you have your staff that you work on it with, right? It's, you don't have like outside residents on the committee anymore, do you?
No.
Yeah, because we used to. And so a lot of that's been dissolved. So really it's the staff kind of creating their own committee. So yeah, the idea of adding some council members to that, whatever that group is, or to create something, some representatives from her that could help work with the council would be great. Trevor was just mentioning that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the power in having some committees is we actually in staff meeting, we talked about initiative overload, right? And we gotta be careful on having too many initiatives because they can overlap some of those things. But what it can do is it can help provide better insight to the budget and policy conversation with the council as well for those, right? Where we're talking about Heritage Days and you're seeing a little bit more of what's happening boots on the ground, and so you can understand kind of the policy direction or the budget direction that we might want to request or the code, right? One thing I've been a part of code committees, and I think when they're focused on, hey, council needs land use code to be up there to focus on land use, and you dive down that route, and that's really great. When it becomes just tell us what codes need to, sometimes that can get a little hairy. Right?
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying, we wouldn't want to become meddlesome as in we're just like, hey, we just noted that all this needs to be done, here's a big workload for you. You know, that's not the content here, and I think everybody feels that way. Yeah, I see some head nods. Yeah, Councilmember Johnson.
That's what, I just wanna make sure that it's like, these committees aren't there for like another layer of approvals or something. It's not like, oh, city staff, we want you to think about stuff, then you have to get approval for this committee, then you go take it to city council. It's mostly just kind of getting that viewpoint of city council folks there, as well as they get to also see what the staff is doing, the decisions being made, so it's not gonna be this burden on top of the administrative side of things.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember.
As far as the Heritage Days one, I think it's just been a couple of years since we haven't had one, but I was on it for, I guess maybe it was only 1 year. We didn't do it because I was on it for a couple of years. And that's how it was. It was just, we just talked about, we all had a part of the groups were represented, right? From RAG, parks to city council and all that. It's just offering perspective. So it was nice. And I think maybe it just got away because it was, the Heritage Days was kind of like a machine that just did the same old things. But now that we're evolving Heritage Days, it would be good to bring it back. But yeah, I like the idea of committees and I like the idea of doing it in a work session.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, Councilmember Shaw.
And then Councilmember Larson, anything from you? You have to double check that he's still with us.
Yeah, I'm with you, and nope, I like the idea.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, well, that's all from me. So thanks so much, you guys. Is there anything further from the council before we adjourn? Okay, awesome. Well, and seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.
Different shares, the other.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Like a moment's delay.